My name's Matt Sedillo. I'm a poet out of Los Angeles, California, working artist. I I write poetry, and I try to write the poetry that is reflective of the fights that I'm involved in and the things I really believe, and I really want to fight and do my part, and like write. Writing is fighting. I want to do my part to try and make the world a better place. And, my first book of poetry was published by Casa de Poesia in 2010 for What I Might Do Tomorrow. Right now, I'm currently shopping my second manuscript, The Same Stretch of Sidewalk. And as an artist, I think it's really, really important to reflect the times that you're living in. And I think it's important, if you want to be, you can reflect those times, and it's important to pick a side. And the side that I've chosen is the side of, the worker, is the side of the immigrant, is the side of the powerless, is the side of the people who is not necessarily people who I feel like I'm speaking for, but people I feel I am of. I'm originally from Los Angeles, but I'm originally from East LA. I'm originally from Greater East LA. I'm actually originally technically from El Sereno, but Maywood as well. But I'm from neighborhoods where the demographic, generally speaking, is thought of as criminal or as alien or as all kinds of like that. So I feel like when I write poetry or when I go around different spots of the country, speaking to some of these experiences, I'm not just speaking of my experience. In many ways, I'm speaking of a broader experience. But that is not disconnected from who I am, and I'm not speaking for anyone. I'm speaking as myself. But in speaking as myself, it becomes a very political act because of the nature of the country we live in. When it really should just be a form of self-expression. But because of the times we live in, because of how things are so deeply racialized in this country, just to speak to the experience of of my family history is to really feel to take a political stand, and I am a political poet, and that is. So I come at poetry from a little bit of a different angle than many people that tend to be doing the things I do. I actually I don't come out of an MFA program. I'm not necessarily directly out of the university. In fact, I didn't actually even attend an open mic or actually get in front of an open mic. Anyways, so I was 26 years old. I mean, I've been working for many, many years. Well, not many years. I was still very young. I got my first job, I think, when I was 17. So I've been working in retail, and I've worked my way up to management, which was really kind of an odd position because, on the one hand, I'm not really making that great a wage. I mean, I was making a livable wage, sort of. Certainly more than people that were not in management. But at the same time, I was kind of like the front line, kind of demanding people's labor. But as the labor market goes, I went from being a manager to seeking some work elsewhere, and ending up kind of homeless. And I say kind of homeless. I was houseless. I was totally out. I actually maintained having a job. I actually had a job, and I was living out of my car, and that was a really brutal experience. That was really, really brutal. And I remember up until that point, I was like 24 at the time. And I remember up until that point, I was very artistic-minded, and I wanted to become like this great artist. And I just didn't see it happening, and I was a very deep alcoholic, and I was really angry and really bitter with so many people and so many aspects of my life. I didn't understand it, and then the homeless was just like almost bottoming out, and I remember I went to a library, and I started reading. Because it was a place I could keep cool. This was in Dallas. And I actually ended up starting to read Marx, and I started to read all kinds of other stuff. And a lot of things began to make sense to me. And then I came out of that experience thinking that I'm putting away my bourgeois dreams of becoming a ridiculous artist, and I'm going to be very serious, and I'm going to write political pamphlets. And this was how I envisioned the next chapters of my life, and I was going to go organize, and I was going to do all the things like this, and what ended up happening was I had a friend who was also very politically minded, and he brought me to an open mic, and I see, an audience of like 100 people, and I see someone come up and do a political poem, and I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to be exactly like this. I'm going to do these political poems, and I'm going to politicize this crowd. And they may not like me, but they're going to respect me, which is such an absurd way to go through life. Can you imagine, like, going on a first date? That person may not like me, but they're going to respect me. This is ridiculous. And so this was my ridiculous self at the age of 26. And I thought about that, and I thought that's what I was going to do. I was going to politicize this one group of people, and I was going to just hit it as hard as I could. And but that's not what ended up happening. What ended up happening was I ended up writing some poetry. Some of it went over well, some of it didn't. But eventually I started getting a little better at it, and then all of a sudden, next thing I knew, I won a slam, and the next thing I was the Grand Slam champion. A couple of years later, Los Angeles, and I got to meet people all over the country competing in slams, and I got to meet. After that, I got published, or before that, a little before that, I got published, and then I got to meet these these really like legendary figures like Lawrence Ferlinghetti, and instead of this kind of alien kind of experience, it became part of just my normal life, but I'm always shaped by the fact, but I'm always shaped by those formative experiences as a worker, as having worked, as having known precariousness, as have known particularly not just as a worker, but as a worker in this time period, where jobs are hard to come by, and quick to leave and quick to be taken away. And that was, the world I came from. I come from a world of someone that was born in 1981. And I come out of that experience. Not just anyone. I mean, I come from a Mexican American, born in Southern California in 1981. And that is the life experience I had. And I've been able to articulate a lot of that, I hope. Yeah. So I think that, when I say that, being shaped in 1981, I mean, I'm shaped by, the things that have happened in my time and the time I've been alive. And, there are many things that happened in the time I've been alive that I wasn't really too aware of, like the fall of the Berlin Wall or something like that. But, like, in the time that I was an adult, having experienced 9/11, having, and the aftermath of that, and having, been around for, the Great March of 2006, and having, and as a child, remembering 92, the uprisings in 92, those are kind of the primary things in my life. And I think that when we look at what's happening today in the country, and we look at what's happening with how things are shaping, we have to really, like I said earlier, you have to pick a side. And I think that, I mean, the brutal dehumanization we see of for instance, the migrant workers. It's just, it's I mean, it's almost a political act to say that people are human. I mean, if we look at the way that in the aftermath of 9/11, how Sikh store owners were attacked because the assumption that they were Muslim. I mean, the assumption that they were Arab. I mean, this is the kind of political illiteracy in this country. If you look at the way the Arab Americans are treated in this country, look at the brutality of something like it's in like Chapel Hill. It's just it's a very scary kind. We're heading in very scary directions, and we really need to stand. We need to stand firm that these things are not okay, and that we need to to move forward. And I do view fighting racism as a class question. I don't view it absent of being a question that applies to workers. I feel this is the primary struggle in this country because of the way the way history has shaped it. And I feel as an artistic worker that it is my job, or it is the job that I've taken up to really speak to how much deep and structurally this country needs to be changed. But first and foremost, who's going to do that work? Who are the people that are going to do that? And why would they do that? And their minds need to be changed. So as an artistic worker, what I've done is I have, I go and I lead workshops, and I bring people in to really speak to their experience, and I try to really have them look at what exactly it is they've experienced in this world, and see how that has been shaped by like broad historical context, but also show that they are potentially the shapers of the future. That a lot of what we talk about, especially in cultural work, is it's not fixed. I mean, there was a time when these great poems like I Too Sing America in poems like Still I Rise or Yo Soy Keen. There was time that those poems didn't exist. I mean, somebody sat down and wrote them. Someone created that, and we too, have a song to sing. We too have all kinds of things that we have to offer, and I try to do my best when I lead my workshops to really, quickly engage that and then get out of the way. As far as my own work, my own production, I try to create works that are historically dense, and that speak to the issues of so many various peoples that live here, and have toiled here, and have fought here, and have imagined a better day, and have in some cases fought and died for it. And this stuff is not. This is not some kind of exercise in just grasping at some kind of narratives that don't connect to me. My great grandfather was a coal miner in Colorado, and he died when he was only like 3 years older than I am now. My grandfather, his son, though born in Colorado, was swept up in the Mexican Repatriation Act. I mean, this stuff is real, and that stuff had an impact on my family and my life. But I know that the future is yet unwritten. So it's up to us to make the better world, and no one's alive but us. So we got to do it. And as artists, as workers, as professors, as attendees in the audience, as whatever capacity it is that we have to put our hands in the gear of this world and this economy, as workers, as laborers, as whoever we are, we got to do it. And I try to do my best.
Los Angeles is falling apart. In the streets, in the suburbs, in the wind. In a barely kept Hollywood bathroom, wheezing, vomiting, coughing up blood. These past few days, these past few years, I have spread myself across this sprawl. And now fear this drive may kill me. Kill us all. And I wander over a general hospital between whose walls desperation wears in high concentration upon the faces of the shop-worn and prematurely ill alike. As they wait upon the news of illness they cannot afford to have, survival without insurance, this may take a while. Los Angeles is full of untold misery. A homeless man sleeps next to me, and I could smell the years of hard distance between who he is now and who he may have been. And all that stands between him and the bitter wind is chance. Is the kindness of a night nurse who will let him sleep in peace. Los Angeles is full of good people who from time to time can turn a blind eye to killer policy, and I wonder how more bounce checks, free clinics, carry cash, and leave the account in the negative stand between me and him. Me and the bitter wind, and if so, where would I go? From Venice to San Francisco, there's not a war on the homeless, a war on the dispossessed. There are fewer and fewer options. They got shelters for women and children, all inadequate. For me, just man up, homeboy. It's that concrete pillow, it's that cardboard blanket, and freeze yourself to death. Yes, this city will leave you to die on the same stretch of sidewalk where banks stretch into the sky. And I wonder, as even now Skid Row is being gentrified, as this city, as this system, as the pigs push people past poverty, past hunger, past homelessness, the very edge of existence on Skid Row, where all the so-called complexities of an economy are laid bare, where the rich are literally stacked upon the poor. Los Angeles is full of grotesque absurdity, especially on Skid Row, where they send millions annually policing the misery of people with nowhere to go, because when your pockets are empty and you ain't got nothing, and change is just not coming, when there's no real difference between a booming metropolis and a barren desert, and the world of money passes by you, passes through you, as though you were just part of the scenery, protected in the knowledge they are serviced by pigs who speak the language of violence, the language of the nightstick, the language of untold misery that will beat you for begging, beat you for sleeping, beat you for breathing, beat you for doing whatever it is you need to do to survive the night in the bitter wind. Los Angeles. I said Los Angeles is full of pigs.